Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's about 2:35 in the afternoon here on the 1st of September, 2025 in Minsk. I should add that. And it's a nice day here. We had it was a little bit cold this morning, actually. A little bit cold, but we had some warm days lately. We had a cold spell, and now it's warmed up a bit. Who knows what the near future is going to bring. Obviously, September things are going to be a little bit cooler. What was that song? Try to remember the kind of September. Anyway, some lady looking at me. No, I'm not making a concert here, lady. Okay, anyway, the news now. It's just like yesterday. It is the biggest news anyway. It is this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You know, some really big stuff. This is some really, this is historical. This is historical. And it's bigger news than what goes on in the war between Ukraine and Russia and possibly even Gaza, except for the fact that a lot of people are losing their lives. Terrible things like that. But even this economic news, this has a lot to do, if it's done properly, to prevent wars. And in a certain sense, you know, when you look at how the United States has dominated economics in the world, to a small extent, it has prevented some wars. Somebody always grabs that bench. But of course, it's caused a lot of other wars. You know, the hegemonic dominance of the United States saying, you do what we tell you or we're going to bomb you. You know, and Israel, of course, as the leader of the United States, it's not the United States that leads Israel, it's the other way around. It is the dominant power is obviously Israel. They're the dominant leaders of influence on planet Earth because they get to do whatever they want. They even admit that on many occasions. Israel says they do what they want, when they want, to who they want, whenever they want. And the United States always backs them up. Nobody else has that privilege. Not even the United States itself. So you have some problems inside of the United States. Republicans want one thing, the Democrats want another. But when Israel wants something, Israel gets it. Always. And if you are looking, they can bomb all the countries around them. Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, their own country, within their own country. Gaza, for example, the West Bank. And now they're talking about taking over the West Bank. They just mentioned something about that yesterday. And it's not like, we have to confer with the United States. Apparently, some people say that in the last administration of Donald Trump, that he blocked it 2 times when they were going to take over the entire West Bank. Can't go this way, it's noisy. Can't go that way. Some lady has grabbed that bench and she looks like she's camping out there. Never gonna leave there. Probably got a tent and a sleeping bag and everything somewhere hidden. And see, look at this sucky bench here. Nowhere to rest your back, and I don't want to lay down on it. I don't know, I guess I'll have to walk around amongst the trees here. You get the effect of the changing light, which is terrible. I don't want to do that either. Oh man. As I said, that bench over there, there's one bench that has a backrest. It's always the bench that is taken. If you make benches, I guess that's the lesson. Make sure you have a backrest, because nobody likes the other ones. But let's talk about that Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Yesterday and today, of course, very historical. And this is a blueprint that will steer the course of geopolitics in a new and a positive direction, more than anything that has happened in decades, actually, because a lot of things are much different now. This is the biggest Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in history, and there's been a much stronger bond, you know, thanks to Donald Trump, I suppose. There's been a much stronger bond cemented between at least the RIC countries, RIC, Russia, India, and China. And of course, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is mostly concerned with those countries that are located in Eurasia, not my Asia. Sounds like a planet. Uranus, no, Eurasia. And maybe I'll go sit on that tree, see if that cat is over there, like I did in one video, if you guys remember. Yes, but of course it is extending, you know, beyond Eurasia for the most part. Indonesia, I don't know, is that considered Eurasia? I guess Indonesia is part of Asia. It's Southeast Asia. And then you have countries, let's see what other countries are in there that people might say, oh, that's not part of Eurasia. Anyway, you know, you got, I don't know, Turkey, I guess, is part of it. Belarus. Wow. It's like a little crabapple fell. I'll tell you what, I lived in the Caribbean, and it was always a fear that you're going to walk under a coconut tree when a coconut falls. And I guess that has happened to people, and you can have very, very serious injuries from that. So let me go grab, there's benches over here, but it gets too close to the traffic anyway, even if there are no backrests on the benches. One time I sat by this tree, and there was a kitty over here. Oh man, look at that! I didn't even see you. Do you remember me? Hey, wait, where are you going? Remember we were buddies before. This is your spot. It's very strange. He hangs around where there's like a mud puddle here. I don't understand it. So he's going to come and bother me like he did in the other video. Some of you may remember that. Oh, it looks like he's decided that this is his bathroom too. Oh. Okay. I'm sure he's going to join me. I don't have any food though. I normally don't. I just travel light when I make these videos like this. Okay, let's talk about these things here. So it's an even stronger bond, and I'll tell you what, if you watch and you see the faces and you see the actions of these people, not necessarily of China, because maybe he's under a little bit of pressure because he's the one that's hosting all of this stuff, but you see Modi and even Putin and a lot of other people, and this, you can just see, you can read it in their faces, you can read it in their actions. This is a really, really, really significant meeting, more so than anything else. Erdogan, he didn't look so impressive or nothing, but Lukashenko, Putin, and Modi was really enthused about this meeting, because, you know, Modi, he just had this problem, mostly concerning Donald Trump, and putting 50% tariffs on his country. And I tell you what, if Lula could have been there, he would have been just like Modi. But let's keep going anyway here. As I was saying, you have Donald Trump to thank for this. There are a few things, primarily some of these great leaders, of course, it has a lot to do with this. And I even include Lukashenko in this. You know, Lukashenko, Belarus is a country of what, maybe 10 million? It's not that big. There are cities in China that are much bigger than even the whole entire population of Belarus. There are probably cities in Europe. What I'm talking about is maybe London, Paris, I don't know. How many millions do they have? And Minsk here, I call this a big city. It's over 2 million, I believe, but it still seems big to me. And when you want to put it in scale, there's only one city in Germany that is bigger than Minsk, and that's Berlin, like Frankfurt. But you hear a lot about Frankfurt, you hear a lot about Hamburg, you hear a lot about Munich, but those are smaller cities than Minsk, even though you rarely ever hear of Minsk. You only heard of Minsk because of the Minsk Accords, which of course was nothing but on the side of the France and Germany. They said they were just tricking Russia. They tricked Russia, you know, also signing this treaty, and then said they never had any intention of obeying this treaty whatsoever. But they said as a matter of fact, they came out and admitted it, just like Poroshenko, which was the leader of Ukraine at that time. They tricked Russia, and during the time when this treaty was in power, they said they're just going to use it to arm Ukraine to the teeth and get them ready for a war against Russia. So that's what the whole thing was about. But they're the nice guys, the trustworthy ones, and not Russia. You know, even though they come right out and admit it. I mean, it's the incredible things you hear from these people. They say one thing, and then the next sentence is a complete contradictory to the sentence they said before it. It's just amazing. Like Ursula von der Leyen. I don't know. Okay. So Trump, Trump wasn't there, but like I said, he played a big part in the success of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, unknowingly, of course. Trump's antagonistic tariffs, his trade policies turned out to be the catalyst that's bringing these non-Western world countries all together. And it's very, very true. Mostly these tariffs, and everybody is forming a bond. Have you guys ever worked in a place, for example, where you had sort of a tyrannical boss, owner, manager, whatever the deal might be, and then you will notice that a lot of the help that work there, the rank and file, are very good friends together when the boss is a asshole, I guess is a word to say. And then when you have just a regular old boss, you know, the staff might have their little cliques and fight amongst each other, but everybody bonds together when there's some sort of a tyrant. And I see it very similar to that. And I'm not saying Donald Trump is necessarily a big tyrant, even though to a large extent he certainly is. But anyway, that's beside the point. He's actually what's bringing these countries together, you know, in his trade policies, and everybody trying to punish everybody that's not, I don't know, even the ones that bend over to for America. Yes, okay. And the glue for these relationships of these countries, obviously, is Putin and Xi, just like the BRICS. So these are unifying leaders, Xi and Putin. And now enter Modi. Modi is also the similar type of leader. And I think a lot of these other leaders, they take their cue from these unifying leaders, which would include Lula or any of these people that are involved in this. And then you have this, I see it's tradition, I think, with Lukashenko. Lukashenko, he's the same. He's the same for the past 15 years. And he is a very down, I guess you could, I don't know, what's that the word, earthy? He's consistent. He's a consistent guy. And he basically has very similar or very slow changing views and policies as what he did maybe a long time ago. He has no aims on taking over territory of any other neighboring country, even though they probably accuse him of that. But of course the West is just doing this stuff, believing they can unify their own people and say, Putin's going to get us if we don't make war, and you guys pay higher taxes to pay for a big powerful military until we provoke, until Russia attacks us. Yeah. Okay. But what is missing, like I said, in this summit, and it's a lot of these other countries, you know, and it could very well contain North Korea. And there are countries, there are at least 12. They're considering 12 applicants to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and maybe even for the next year. I guess this year one of the newer countries was Laos. You know, that was one of these countries also that were suffering against the United States in the Vietnam War. And I don't know who the other countries are, the other 12 that they're considering, and maybe they'll let all 12 in. I don't really know what the criteria is for letting these people into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And like I said, it's just 12 that they're considering. How many have applied? I don't even know. I'm assuming you have to have some sort of connection, and maybe this is going to grow bigger and bigger. And when you consider the amount of population that these countries represent, and the amount of the GDP in the world, it's very, very significant. And when you see the decline of, for example, a lot of the countries in the G20, and you know what, if you want to call it this G7, they're not really expanding to a large extent. Maybe they're even in decline. But these countries are growing much faster. I think, what is Belarus's? They had a big economic, I think, I don't know if it's 7%, 5%. It's anyway, the growth of Belarus economically is bigger than that of the United States. So just in case you wanted to know, I think maybe it's even a percentage. Is it bigger than Russia? I can't remember for sure. So anyway, what else is missing is Africa, the Middle East, and South America. The Caribbean is also missing from there, and that's like I'm mentioning, a lot of the global South. And anyway, so one of the chief principles of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, of course, is equality. And it doesn't matter the size of your country necessarily or your population, but there is a certain amount of equality. And of course the United States has stressed inequality for all the organizations that they belong to. Always countries have veto rights, and they have a bigger vote than other countries and things like that. And that even includes the United Nations, even though the Shanghai Cooperation Organization honors the United Nations very much so. Of course they don't honor NATO, in case you didn't have guessed that on your own. Okay. So, and you look at how the principles of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which actually mirrors that of, I wouldn't say, or matches that of the BRICS countries. And it's pretty much the opposite of these other organizations that contain Europe and the United States. I guess you call them the globalists. So the chief goals of those countries, of course, is domination and control. You can see, as the host, he opened up this Shanghai Cooperation Organization or Convention by emphasizing policies of multilateralism, the rule of law, respecting differences, mutual trust, respect, and as I said, it's the opposite in the Western countries. You know, there are countries that dominate, and a lot of people are putting out, I think, the global research. Who was this? A big reporter from a big publication, I believe, centered in China, is saying that pretty much everything in the West is based on whatever the United States wants. That's how everything goes. And Donald Trump, of course, he says that. His goal is to dominate in absolutely everything. He's come right out and said it. And Donald Trump, of course, is a better leader than Joe Biden and some of these other ones, Obama. Obama is a guy that likes to go around and smile and gets friendly and drop bombs on people from drones and things. But anyhow, another thing Xi wanted to stress is people-centered approach. And of course, the West is centered on profits. Everything is based on power and profits and control, as I said. And of course, the World Economic Forum, the recent talk with Harari, the chief technician of the World Economic Forum, he said it is control. Virtually, it is control of people. Monitoring and control of everybody on Earth if they get their way. Andrew Tate, he sent out a tweet. And of course, I don't know if this was an older tweet or not, and it mirrors a lot of what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization stands for. So maybe it is a recent tweet. But he said that China, India, and South America, and I don't know, that's actually not quite so accurate. You know, we can excuse Andrew Tate, really decent guy, by the way. But he said China, India, and South America hold the majority of the world's population. I would say Africa, India, China, and of course South America then would be included in that as well. And that would be a very, very big majority of the people, of the population of the world. Oh, what's that kitty always hiding? Gonna hunt a butterfly. See? I don't know if you can see it. Oh, didn't get it. Yeah, but anyway, it might not have anything to do with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but he said, because of knowingly, it probably. He said they also have the majority of the world's resources. That's not necessarily true. You would say Africa, Russia, and maybe Venezuela. You can also add China to that. China has rare earth minerals and things, as we all know. China lacks in certain things. I think they've actually discovered oil in China, so China does have oil as well, even though they don't have as much as, say, Russia or Saudi Arabia and places like that. Mexico used to be the big one, you know. They used to have a lot in the Gulf of Mexico, and apparently, at least what the story that we have been heard or told, is that a lot of that is depleted from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't necessarily think there's much truth to that, to be honest with you. And as you all know, and I've mentioned it in other videos, that a very, very big oil supply has been found underneath Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And Haiti has some of the biggest oil reserves in the world. And just a few years ago, they found huge oil reserves in Guyana in South America. And of course, that's one reason why there's that dispute between Venezuela and Guyana, because now Venezuela claims nearly half of Guyana, saying that's ours. I don't know, it sounds like a dastardly move by Venezuela if you ask me, but anyway, it's none of my concern and I don't know that much about it. But they had that earthquake in Haiti, and that's one reason why the United States was in there lickety-split, made sure that Venezuela was kicked out. And I was even mentioning before about how some of these people that went into the Israeli doctor's tent, they never came out, you know, and they didn't come out the front, maybe some came out the back, missing some organs or whatever like that, little boys and things. And Israel was only there a few days and had to leave because of people noticing these strange things. And yeah, so Israel pulled out. And you know, Israel's big into the organ trade. So, wow, 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 wow. Oh, but we're not supposed to talk about that. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, you people. Anyway. So, yeah, well, Andrew Tate was also saying they manufacture everything important that our imaginary money buys, which is not true. China, maybe, yes, but not really South America. Or what other country, what other place he was saying? China and India is very big, but not South America necessarily, so anyway. But imaginary money, that was a good thing that he added in there, you know. That's another thing, it's printing out of thin air. Oh, interesting, interesting. Interesting words, Andrew Tate. He said it's going to be a huge shock coming to the Western society once this made-up money isn't going to be accepted by a lot of the people in the world. And of course, some of this has been moving in that direction, of course, based on what is going on here in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, because most of those countries, the vast majority of their trade is not done in US dollars anymore, like maybe if you would have gone back, maybe even 7 years ago or whatever, maybe 5 years ago, it would have not been the case. It would have been US dollars, but now they're all moving away from that. And of course, Donald Trump, that is his main reason, he has even stated that, is why he wants to destroy the BRICS. So that's incredible. And let's see. In my video yesterday, I tried to emphasize that these powerful bonds are forming between these existing countries and new bonds forming with other countries. And it's a major, incredible thing. Even more bonds are now forming. I was mentioning yesterday Pashinyan from Armenia, and he was actually leaving these people, and he was trying to suck up to the West, and the West is sucking up to him, and they want to put NATO soldiers in his country, and he leased a certain part of his country to the United States private organization, supposedly, to monitor this corridor that runs between the two separated parts of Azerbaijan. And it's very weird. I think it was even today, you saw this handshake between Pashinyan and Erdogan from Turkey, and they're not very good friends, and they both didn't look very happy shaking hands together. Erdogan, he kind of was making sure he didn't smile too much at all today anyway, when this, I don't know, Erdogan, strange situation with him. You know, as everybody's probably noticed, and maybe he knows that they know, that Erdogan is he's a guy like a loose cannon on deck. You never know which direction he's going to be pointing. And he's begging now to get into the European Union, I believe. At least that was just a month ago. At least that's what the word was out. Very strange stuff. Okay, but anyway, these strengthening bonds, it's very much the opposite of what Donald Trump has been saying. Donald Trump has been saying, I've destroyed, you know, Donald Trump, he's always ahead of himself. I destroyed the BRICS. I'm bringing in billions of dollars from the tariffs, billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. I had the greatest economy the world has ever seen in all of history. And all that, I don't know. Donald Trump is just big into exaggerations. But of course, like I said, he has driven the bonds to be much stronger now between the BRIC countries, Russia, India, China, and looks like Brazil is really going hog wild. But India was never so big into it, and now they're really embracing Russia and China. Like I said, India and China, they had their differences quite a bit of the time, knowing that they have to overcome these, I guess, in the long term. For many years they've known that, and now they're trying to push themselves together out of necessity, much more so than they have been in the past, thanks to Donald Trump, I would say. Wow. Okay. And India and Russia have agreed now to a special privileged partnership. They said, oh, the kitty moved. I guess it was getting sunny over there. Remember when I was here before and this kitty was all over me? Right, kitty. I guess he's too tired now. I hope he's doing okay as far as food and everything. Anyway, I'll tell you what that cat is waiting here for. And a lot of times people come and they, there's garbage cans right over there. And another thing is, people maybe have noticed that this cat kind of hangs out here. This is a little territory right here. He might have a place over there where he gets underneath this, looks like a box over there, when it rains, to get shelter. And another box, there's a gray one and a green one over there. And people notice that he hangs out here, so people maybe bring food here, and they buy it from a grocery store not too far from there. Hear this? Must be 3 o'clock. That's the 3 o'clock alarm here in Avtozavutskaya. Every day at 3 o'clock, this is what you hear, if you can hear it. Okay, the president of Indonesia, as I said yesterday, he had to cancel his trip to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. And it turns out a lot of people are looking at this, a lot of analysts and people based in Asia. What's his name? Antonio, whatever. He's on Brian Berletic's show very often, which Brian's Berletic show, he used to be the voice on New Eastern Outlook. I don't know if that site still exists anymore. But Brian Berletic, you have to look up his YouTube channel. And they're based in Asia, by the way. So they know a lot more than I would know. And but they're talking about a lot of the signs and a lot of the information that this is a color revolution. And this, and I'll get to the reasons of that here. Let's talk about that. So they're trying to overthrow the government of Indonesia. And, they try to find legitimate gripes to rile up the people. And there is a legitimate gripe. And I guess there's one of them. This guy, Prabowo Subianto, the president of Indonesia, one of his campaign promises was to, it's sort of like, you could say, corruption, to rein in the salaries of a lot of these people in the government. They get like big salaries, I guess, considered to what they should be paid in that country. Apparently they get quite a bit over $6,000 a month, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money in the United States even for a politician to be paid, believe it or not. Plus they get tremendous housing benefits. They get big housing benefits. Cat hunting again. Now I'll tell you what they should do is, like in the country that I was living in, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they had lower salaries. The salaries were listed as being much lower. I think maybe if you were from the ruling party, I think your salary is like around 4,000, was it East Caribbean dollars or US dollars? I think it was US dollars. I think it was around 4,000 US, I believe, a month, which is very, very good money, and you'll never have any problems with that. And of course the salary of the opposition members of parliament is around 2,000 a month, which is like half of the 4,000. And that's not really that much in a country like that where prices are actually higher than in the United States. So, and another thing on top of that, a little bit of this for the opposition, but a lot for the ruling party, is they get benefits that are far, far better. For example, if you're a lawyer, you get paid something called loss of practice, and that's even more than what your salary is. So, if you all you have to have is a law degree. You don't even have to have ever had a practice. So you get, I don't know, what is it, $5,000 maybe a month, or maybe just it's $3,000. I don't have the faintest idea on how much, but you get a good chunk of money because you're not allowed to practice law, possibly. Apparently, I don't even know. Maybe you are. As a matter of fact, I think you are allowed to practice law while you are a member of parliament. But if you don't, then you get this money. I don't know. Maybe you get it if you even if you do practice law, because I know there was a lot of, and I met a lot of these people that are in the parliament, and they're practice. They have a practice, not necessarily a law practice, but they have a practice. As a matter of fact, there is one that I know that he did also have a practice, but he was a senator. It was not a. But anyway, so they get that money, and then they get per diem. When they make trips, they make a lot of money. They pay a big amount of money to pay for their hotel as well, and they also get something called entertainment allowance. Entertainment allowance. Well, what the heck is that? Entertainment allowance. So they get a huge amount of benefits, and the salary works out to be a smaller portion of what all of your benefits are. So you get paid much more in benefits. So this country that I'm talking about, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the people there, they get paid more than the ones in Indonesia, which is one of the most populous countries on planet Earth. I think it was number 4. So these people are representatives of a heavily populated lot of people. So they have a lot more people in their constituencies, yet they get less money, and then that is still corruption, I suppose. That's overpayment. Very, very, very strange. But anyway, so they're the 7th most populous nation in the world, and they're the 8th largest economy in the world, of the population over 300 million people. Wow, like the United States nearly. And George Soros is there, been there since 1980s, and the National Endowment of Democracy, which is known for overthrowing governments all over in the South America and everywhere else, they're also active in Indonesia. And then I guess a lot of people are using these flags, I guess some pirate flag things or something, and a lot of these are symbols that this is a Soros and a globalist overthrow. So anyway, it's pretty obvious that it's a color revolution. I just wanted to make that point in a roundabout way, of course. So let's see, anything I left out there? 300 million. Let's see. And also, a big reason why they wanted to overthrow it, recently joined BRICS. It's one of the newest members of BRICS. And isn't it strange, Donald Trump says he wants to destroy BRICS. He's already gone after, he started something with South Africa. So I think he weakened South Africa within that organization. Of course, he's trying to do that with Brazil with the tariffs, and with India with the tariffs, and saying they are fueling Putin's war machine and things like that, even though the United States actually fuels it more, and so does the European Union. But let's don't pay no attention to those. Look at India. Look over there. Look over here. Don't look over here. Look over there. It's absolutely incredible. Yes. What else do we have here? Jeffrey Sachs. He made a statement that the EU took the wrong path by abandoning diplomacy as far as this thing that's going on in Ukraine is concerned. They pursued confrontation instead of diplomacy. He diplomatically, Jeffrey Sachs being diplomatic, he pointed out specifically at Merz. He was diplomatic about it, and he basically diplomatically was saying that Merz is a complete and total blithering idiot. He says he's probably the worst chancellor in German history, and it's probably very true. It makes you wonder. I thought that Olaf Scholz, I mean, I'll tell you what, Germany is gone. I already said that just in a couple of videos ago. Germany is gone. I tell you, the real truth is vast corruption in Germany, and it really makes you wonder how it was sold out, who sold it out to who, what is going on. Merz, of course, is a big product of BlackRock, You know, so right there you can draw a connection somehow that Mertz is sold out to BlackRock. In which ways, I don't know. BlackRock wasn't even present. And I think you can also possibly say that when BlackRock started getting more and more involved into Germany, that is, the decline of Germany accelerated. I tell you what, I'm not a big expert on this, but I hope somebody, maybe somebody out there listening, if any of you want to send this video to some people that do these analysis, send it to them and have them look at any kind of a correlation between BlackRock, when they started coming in and when the decline of Germany began. Very interesting. It should be. And talking about Germany, Ursula von der Leyen, she used to be the Minister of Defense, and that is when the decline of the German military was really, really being escalated, is when she was in charge. You know, a lot of tough talk. She's talking a lot of tough about the European Union right now, as it is declining more and more and more so. And even when she went over to talk to Donald Trump, and basically Donald Trump or the United States won absolutely everything and no advantages whatsoever to the European Union. But I don't even know if she's in any position to say anything anyway. Can she represent all of these economies, or do they represent themselves individually when it comes to trade and tariffs and things? I don't know. Somebody should look at that as well. But anyway, Jeffrey Sachs saying they pursued confrontation with Russia rather than diplomacy. And obviously that has definitely drastically contributed to their downfall, getting rid of the cheap Russian gas and paying triple and quadruple for American gas. Wow. And then getting in cahoots with Ukraine. They're blowing up, what little Russian gas they're getting through the southern Druzhba. I don't know how much they get, if anything, getting it through the northern Druzhba, where Belarus is also part of it. But they're not blowing up any pipelines. But she is, in the past days, going around Europe, the front line, and talking confrontation. We need to build our militaries much, much, much more to go to war against Russia. Here you talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. There's nothing about confrontation being mentioned whatsoever. Only cooperation and all these other things that I was telling you about. Trust and cooperation and all these good things that build people and people-based and all that. It's completely the opposite in the West. And then you can't wonder why they're in decline. Yeah. She's on her you could call it the Hate Russia tour. It's all about Russia. It's all about hating Russia and attacking Russia in any way they can. So she's in Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and everywhere she goes, she has to have some comment, derogatory insult of hate against Putin. And Putin probably never even mentioned Zelensky. And he's got a couple more days. It's already 2 days. He's got 2 more days. He's going to be in China. Probably won't even mention Zelensky anywhere there, or anything about, I'm sure there's talk about the war, but done on a completely different scale. Yes, indeed. Anyway, a Russian version of Jeffrey Sachs is Kirill Dmitriev, and he was talking to the press, during this Shanghai Cooperation Organization, about new agreements are being signed, such as with Turkey, China, India, Vietnam, and it's going to enlarge the use of the Russian credit cards, displacing, say, Visa and MasterCard, and the Russian card is getting stronger and stronger as time goes by. It's used in a lot of countries now. As a matter of fact, it is already used in China, and it is also used in some of those countries. I think in Turkey as well, if I heard from students in my school correctly. In Iran, I know it's used in Iran. Wow. Iran and China, and now it's expanding to India, Vietnam. Wow. Yes. And a lot of joint investments he's talking about. Wow. It's incredible. The United States is really losing out. Even though Putin has said that he will sign cooperation agreements with the United States, such as in the Arctic and all that, I'm sure Putin is reserving all of his best for China and India and some of those countries. Uh, and Putin is, of course, well aware, and everybody else is, that Trump has a goal of destroying the BRICS, and they're members of the BRICS. I wonder if that influences whatever agreements they're going to sign or not. And the words, I guess it was even Trump used himself, is to peel off India, to peel it off from Russia and China, peeling it off. But now he has cemented them even closer together. He's actually put some glue between the two. Wow. So everybody is talking about, all of the truth activists are talking about how Donald Trump's plans, it actually makes Donald Trump look bad. All of his plans have backfired. They use the word backfired. What he was seeking to do, he actually accomplished the opposite and drove these countries closer together. Very much like what was happening with, the West. I guess all these evil idiot people, like Joe Biden, they were successful but it was actually done through covert ways, like supplanting hatred in Germany against Russia and all that. So they drove Germany and Russia apart, but in doing so, they drove Russia and China together, and now India is joining in. It's incredible. There's going to be some really amazing things going on in Eurasia, and you guys have to watch this. I think Tajikistan and all of these other countries, Kazakhstan, this is really going to be something. So the world sees how the weaponization of the dollar, the weaponization of the financial system, the weaponization, of course, as the dollar being the world's reserve currency status, and the banking, weaponization of banking, weaponization of trade. This has nothing, in truth, what this all brought about is the suicide of the West. The West is really dying, and their policies of hatred and confrontation are actually killing them. It is a suicide thing. I tell you what, if I were them, I would start waking up. And I think it was just a video coming out with Alex Jones talking about the West should be waking up. The people in the West are waking up, how their leaders are destroying their countries. That was Alex Jones, I guess, just within days ago. And I think even on that stage was Tucker Carlson. You can find that probably in shorts on YouTube. Wow. So it's happening right before our eyes. And what are the globalists going to do now? There was also Alexander Dugin, great philosopher in Russia, coming and saying some things. Yeah. And let me say what I'm going to say. But anyway, Alexander Dugin was asking, well, what are the globalists going to do now? And he's hinting at the fact that this is not going to be pretty. They're not going to be going down without something really bad. They're going to, look at like Zelensky. He's bombing civilians right now. He does not take this defeat very graciously. It's like a wounded tiger. Sometimes they fight even harder. And I'm wondering myself, to be honest with you, is if this is not, according to these globalists, if this is not a perfect time for them to introduce another pandemic. So be ready. Be ready. I don't know. Hopefully they've already made their attempts and they've been unsuccessful, because you hear about these breakouts of these new COVID things and all that, the monkeypox deal and all that. I don't know. I'm hoping that this stuff is not going to happen. So Pashinyan of Armenia, I have mentioned already, and he is even trying to get even closer. He's definitely making his desires known that he wants to be cemented with China, very, very much so. And makes you really wonder if he really even knows what he wants himself. Maybe he'll be different tomorrow. Yeah. You never know. I mentioned already, Ursula von der Leyen, she was at the wall with Donald Tusk. I guess he's the prime minister. There's a new president, and I think there's Donald Tusk. There's presidents and prime ministers, and one of them, I think they're kind of at odds. One of them, I think, does not want to be as confrontative against Russia, and Tusk does. Donald Tusk does want confrontation with Russia. So I don't know. And what's this new president's name? I don't know. took over for Duda. Oh, the Duda day. So, well, anyway, if Duda stepped down, I guess maybe they do have a democratic process in Poland. But, like I said, Ursula von der Leyen said that they urgently need to arm themselves to go after Putin, because she said once she said Putin is a predator, and I think in Poland she said Putin will not change. Everything is Putin, Putin, Putin. It's just like Zelensky. She's got Zelensky fever, I guess. So there's a kitty over there. And let's see. U.S. drones, long-range drones, have taken off from Sicily to fly over parts of Russia. Wow! Sevastopol and Sochi. Sochi is not a military area. That's a tourist area. It makes you wonder, well, what is the United States? Why do they want to spy on Sochi? It's incredible. So much for a much lighter approach against Russia. They're still sharing intelligence with Ukraine. So maybe you have to be ready. There might even be a Ukrainian drone attack against someplace even as far south and far away from Ukraine as Sochi. And I think that Ukraine even claims that as part of Ukraine, like they claim Krasnodar and Rostov and a lot of other areas. A bunch of crazy fools thinking that it's part of Ukraine. You know, like I said, you can construe something like that when you know the history of Russia and Kievan Rus and all that, because the beginning of the history of Russia started in, like I've said in other videos, started in Kiev, and the first people that were referred to as Russians were people from Kiev, and that was, like, you could say, was the first capital of Russia. And then of course it moved to, I don't know, it moved to, anyway, eventually it moved to Moscow. Maybe it was part of St. Petersburg. It's just like the capital of the United States used to be in Philadelphia. So anyway, and the United States, what you don't know, I said, like a lot of times, I mean, this is just a weird fact that a lot of people in America don't know, that the first president of the United States, his name was Samuel Huntington. I guess that's the same name of the professor in Harvard. So the first president of the United States was not George Washington. His name was Samuel Huntington. However, that was under the Articles of Confederation, and then of course the United States adopted another one. What was it, 1780 something? Was the Constitution, and then of course the first president in Philadelphia, I believe, was George Washington. So some interesting facts. Okay. Also, an interesting fact today. NATO has called an emergency meeting, and part of that has to do with this Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. And of course the larger reason is because Russia is gaining so much territory, I guess, even though they said that is not their chief goal, is to gain territory, you know, in these areas in, I don't know, what do you call it, Ukraine or the conflict zone, but they're gaining strides in leaps and bounds, and there's been some activity towards the area of Odessa. It makes you wonder that first they would have to go to Nikolaev, and I don't know, maybe they, you know, but anyway, there is some indication that Russia might be moving towards Odessa. And I'll tell you what, Ukraine would be wise if they would right now rush into some sort of an agreement with Russia to end all this right now. But if they don't, they just might lose like areas closer and more parts of Kharkiv and Odessa, because those are traditionally Russian cities, as is Kiev, as I mostly just now said. Kiev was on the side of Russia in World War II, but Lvov and those areas, they were on the side of the Nazis. So Kiev was at that time an ally of Russia, of the Soviet Union, I guess I should say. And Lvov and those parts of Ukraine were allied with the Nazis. Okay. So, what is the purpose, the stated purpose of this meeting of NATO, this rushed meeting in Brussels, is to explore joint steps for targeting Russia. That is the words I guess they used in English. Forming joint steps to target Russia, if that interests you at all. And what that means, how, I don't know, I guess it's up for grabs. Targeting Russia in what ways? Targeting like for bombs? I don't have any idea. And maybe part of this has to do with the fact that the United States, and who knows how quickly they're going to be sending these 3,500 and some odd missiles for extended range that Ukraine can strike targets deeper into Russia. So much for Donald Trump, being a friend of Russia. Like we all said, he was, he said himself, Obama sent blankets and I sent javelins. Donald Trump is escalating things to a large extent, but it's in some ways he's de-escalating, and some ways he's escalating all of this, what's going on in Ukraine. He has not stopped sending intelligence information to Ukraine to help them target targets in Russia and bomb, basically, and kill civilians, as is what the United States is doing. They still have American soldiers on the ground in Ukraine, pressing the buttons to fire rockets or missiles off into Russia. U.S. soldiers are doing that, in case you want to know. Okay, anyway, that's about all I have to say for right now. It's nearly 1 hour video. It's a lot of information. I hope you guys appreciate it. I don't get that many views so much anymore. It's like I have lackluster videos, and like I said, my deal, I could put, if I knew how to do it, and I'm too lazy to even find out why. I could be putting some clips within these videos as well, showing these people, the words coming out of their mouth, saying these things that I am actually telling you right now. But if you're also looking at other truth activists and looking at other videos, you'll see that the things, I have my own analyses in here, and I try to make it clear that there are my analysis, and a lot of the information and facts that I'm putting out, other people are going to say the same sort of a deal, and you can find some of these people and see the words coming out of their mouths saying exactly the things that I am saying that they're saying. So anyway, that's all I have to put out for today. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.